What if I told you your audience is probably just a bunch of random people that won't actually buy your stuff? If you're like me and you were stuck in this position, this video is for you. In today's video, I'm going to go over the 4 key parts about identifying your ideal customer profile, how to integrate it into your content moving forward, and of course, how to go after those specific people so that you can create the business of your dreams. Let's jump into it. If you're new here, my name is Noah Kavanaugh, and I help turn current and former athletes into influential leaders through media literacy and building their own personal brands. The biggest mistake I see when most people are identifying their ICP is not being specific enough with the development of their ICP. And we're going to go over all 4 ways that you can identify and narrow down your ICP today that are incredibly important. For those of you who don't know, ICP stands for Ideal Customer Profile. This is essentially your audience member, the person who I'm speaking to inside of this camera. This is obviously an empty room. Nobody's here, but the idea is you who are watching are my ideal customer profile. It's the person who I want to serve the most with my content. Now, a lot of people go super broad. I want to talk to everybody who wants to be successful. I want to talk to people who want to make money. Yeah, okay, doesn't everybody? Well, realistically, it's more, hey, I'm talking to somebody who's 18 to 34 years old. They're mostly men. They mostly live in large metropolitan areas. They're a current or former athlete, and they are driven and ready to build their personal brand to help create their ideal future. That's a lot more specific, and that's what I want to get to today. And you might be thinking to yourself, Noah, I don't have a customer to sell to because I don't actually have a product. Well, you're exchanging your content and your value proposition for their attention. You are essentially buying their attention, which is in turn going to get you tons of opportunities from a sponsorship perspective, create way more opportunities from a networking perspective, and a myriad of other things that will come your way as you gain influence online through your personal brand. Because at the end of the day, attention plus time equals likability. So why does developing an ICP actually matter? Well, content resonates a lot deeper when you have a very specific audience in mind. In fact, when I am personally presenting to this camera in this empty room, I'm thinking of presenting to my ideal customer. And I've actually named that person, which I'll get into a little bit later. And that's the person, you, sitting on the other side of the camera, who's interested in building a personal brand and putting yourself out online so you can create that ideal business or that ideal future for yourself. And when you have a very specific ICP and you're communicating directly to that person, it cuts through a lot of the noise bull that happens when people are speaking generally to, hey, welcome to my video where I'm going to show you how to make more money. Okay, everyone wants that. So there's no specific, I don't feel like I'm being spoken to personally. Whereas you on the other side of this camera might feel like I'm hopefully speaking to you personally because you are in my ideal customer profile. As well, business becomes sustainable with really high value relationships. The more directly you can speak to your ICP, the better that relationship is going to be. And if you do a really quick math, if you have 1,000 people who pay you $100 a year, that's $100,000 right there. That's a pretty amazing business just from behind your camera. If you have that type of math, it scales very, very quickly. And so those high value relationships and why that ICP matters and developing that ICP matters is because as soon as you can have that really close connection to those 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 3,000, now with 150,000 followers, it's like those types of things, that math's pretty good, pretty quick. Okay, now time to get into the 4 content pillars. The first is going to be the observable facts about your ideal customer profile. It's also called the demographic information. This is things like your ICP's age, their gender, location and lifestyle, income level and generation, as well as their life stage. Demographics matter because they are the context that helps everything else on this 4-part list. It's also your access and reach strategy. If you don't know where these people live or how old they are, it's going to be very hard for you to distinguish which platforms to use. And if you're going to target specific areas with an advertisement or something, where to post those ads. Your pricing and offer design are also going to be very reflective of your ICP's demographic information. Because again, when it comes to income level, where they live, the types of people they hang around, those are all demographic pieces of information that are going to influence those pricing strategies. So pillar number 2 is your ICP's psychographic information. Now, this is things that they may or may not share with the world, but it is their own internal world. It's their thoughts, their beliefs, their belief systems, things like that. Psychographics are my personal favorite pillar because they are more of the psychological aspects of a person. So as I'm talking to you, I might message my communication a little bit differently because I know, generally speaking, what you're thinking in your day-to-day life, or I've done really deep work into discovering and talking to people like you about what are the things that you worry about? What are the things that you think about? What are your belief systems? What is your value set? What is your lifestyle choices and interests? And in terms of content, what's your aspirational identity? What are the things that you want to become and who do you want to become? And psychographics matter because this is where real connection happens. Being able to communicate to those psychographic parts of who you are as a listener or a viewer of this channel, I'm going to be able to connect with you a lot more deeply and genuinely because I understand where you're coming from and or I've actually been that person before. You can think about it as well as there's two people in the same demographic category, but if their psychographics are different, they end up on totally opposite ends of the personality spectrum because the psychographics are what actually contribute to who they are as a person. And finally, a shared worldview is what builds community. You think about this from a religious standpoint, political standpoint, social perspective, a gym membership. You can think about it across all different types of communities. It's people coming together with a shared set of thoughts and beliefs. Pillar number 3 is your ICP's needs. Now, these are very important for your messaging because these are often time sensitive and very urgent. So these are things that have to happen and they often sit at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So these are things like what's keeping them up at night, what's threatening their security or their success, what gaps limit their effectiveness in a specific area, what transitions are they navigating and need to navigate in the near future, and simply put, what would they pay to solve? Needs matter because that urgency creates really great hooks when it comes to your content. People also buy solutions to urgent problems that they have. If I'm really hungry, I'm going to have an urgent problem and I'm going to go and buy some food. I'm paying money to get away from that negative thing. What's cool about this is your expertise as a personal brand and the thing you're going to become known for can be the solution to their problem. And simply put, needs-based content gets attention pretty quickly. Pillar 4 is your ICP's wants. So these are things that are aspirational. You can also think of it as your needs are the things you're trying to get away from: hunger, no money, and the aspirational wants are the things you're trying to move towards. So it's carrots like being financially successful, having purpose in life, things like that. Your ICP's wants are often not necessarily time sensitive, but they often carry a very strong emotion associated with them. Wants or positive aspirations might include things like, what does your ICP want to achieve? How do they want to feel? How do they want to be perceived by others? Who do they want to become? And what transformation are they seeking? Wants matter because they pull your audience towards you when you speak about them. Aspirational messaging also builds longer-term relationships, which we spoke about in Psychographics, means a lot. And wants-based content builds a ton of loyalty with your audience. So put very simply, demographics is your access and context. Psychographics is connection and resonance. Needs is urgency and relevance. And wants is aspiration and loyalty. During the course of your persona development for your ICP, I would strongly recommend giving your ICP a name. It just helps solidify it a little bit more. And it might help when you get in front of a camera or behind a keyboard if you're going to write your content or speak your content into a microphone. It's going to make it a lot easier to communicate directly with that person. And you're going to get a lot stronger loyalty when somebody feels like they're being communicated directly to. I would also strongly recommend writing on a piece of paper all 4 pillars and the things that go in each pillar for your ICP. You could also go a step further and create a narrative about how their typical day is. That will really help you understand the way that they think, the way that they move, and it'll help you target specific content for that specific person. And at the end of the day, a handshake between your ideal customer profile and your personal brand and your ideal future self is the style of content and the messaging that you're going to create for them. Once you have your 4 parts written down, now it's time for some validation. And this validation process is really important because if you have a great idea of who your ICP is, but that ICP just doesn't exist in the real world, That's a problem. For many of you, your ICP is actually just going to be the previous version of yourself. I tend to be in that camp as well. I'm trying to talk to current and former athletes who are interested in building their personal brands because they understand the power of having a personal brand in any area of life, that it will bring up all sorts of positive benefits for them. In doing this validation process, you can ask the following questions. Can you identify 100 or 1,000 different people in this particular category or ideal customer profile? Does this ideal customer profile you've come up with consume content on the platforms you're interested in creating on? Importantly, do they pay for solutions like what you're trying to offer? Can you reach them without a massive marketing budget? If you answer no to more than one of these questions, I would strongly recommend fine-tuning your ICP or potentially even changing your ICP. Just know that on a positive note, your personal brand is probably going to hit home with more than just one ICP. So although that your first attempt might not be a perfect marriage of your ICP content and your personal brand, you might find that a completely new ICP pops out of the woodwork if you think a little creatively, that'll actually allow you to pursue your personal brand goals and your business goals, or even your athletic goals, in a way that's more sustainable moving forward. You also want to have a reality check about the total addressable market, or the TAM. So how big is the TAM to begin with? Is this a business when you say, hey, I'm going to be a billionaire, but you're only going after 100 people? Well, if those 100 people are billionaires, then maybe, but the likelihood of that happening is very, very little. So you want to also be realistic about how big your total addressable market is. You might also ask questions like, out of that total addressable market, how many of those people actually do you think have the problem you're trying to address? And out of that total addressable market, how many of those people actually have access to socials, have access to a TikTok account, for instance, and can pay attention to the type of content that you're going to be producing? At a very minimum, I would recommend going for a total addressable market of over 1,000 to 2,000 people. I think having any smaller number than that, unless you're doing a very high ticket service-based business, is not going to work out so well. So now that you have a complete idea of what your ICP is, who your ICP is, what their wants and needs are, what their psychographic and demographic information is, you can start to create content systems around that person so that you can speak directly to that person, whether it's a previous version of yourself or you're talking to a totally new ICP you're not as familiar with. You can get familiar with them by talking to people in your audience through the comment section, through phone calls, through free Zooms as a group, whatever it's best for you to create the best possible value content and hopefully make a stronger personal brand for yourself. If you're interested in more information about building an ICP profile, you can head to the link down below for the Athleadership community, where I help turn athletes, current and former, into influential leaders through building personal brand and, of course, media literacy. If you're interested, come join us. It's a great time, and we interact with you guys on a daily basis, helping you build the future of your dreams. All right, guys, that's it from me today. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, hit that like button, comment down below what your favorite pillar is and how it's going to help you create the best possible content for your ICP. Stay dangerous, everybody. See you later.